This video is designed to assist you with Activity 3 and also Activity 4 of the first assessment, the Portfolio Assessment item. So you'll first read the little blurb at the top. So it's talking about John Smith, who is interested in starting up a business selling laptops, tablet devices and phones. He has great relationships with suppliers in China and he can purchase the goods really cheap. The Chinese suppliers are also willing to send the goods direct to the end customer or user. John is not sure which business model he should use. He's thinking about opening a physical shop or maybe selling over the internet in some way. And remembering, I'm just scrolling up, in the last activity we looked at some different ideas about e-business or e-commerce models. John has $100,000 startup funding and good ICT technology skills. So he has previous experience as a business owner before. He's owned an electronics store but has low experience with e-commerce. So John has asked you to research which of the business models or approaches would suit him best. So the two options are a traditional physical shopfront or some sort of an e-commerce business. So question 1 is to depict the value chain, and note there's a separate YouTube video on what a value chain is and what it looks like. But do notice the word depict. Depict means it needs to be some kind of a drawing. So one way you might want to do this is using Smartart. So Smartart, you can go to the Insert tab, select Smartart here, select process, and you can use some sort of a process model, whatever you like, whatever is your preference, to actually depict the different steps in that value chain. I'm just going to go back up here. Once you've done it for the physical shop front, you'll then do the same thing for the e-commerce business. So what this one looks like really depends, and I'm scrolling up, on the different sort of model that you might be thinking about. So have a look at the video I referred to on YouTube about value chains and just think about the steps that might be involved if he was going to do e-commerce. From there, you'll also explain opportunities for intermediation or disintermediation. So intermediation is adding more links into a particular chain, whereas disintermediation is removing some steps or links out of the chain. So just have a think about the different options and try and think of at least one intermediation or disintermediation. But if you really are switched on, you might be able to think of one of each, for example. Once you've done that, number 4 is to research and analyse the business model and basically tell John what to do. So here's an analysis table. This should be quite familiar. It's actually very similar, I'm just scrolling up, to this activity that you've already done up the top here. So I'm just scrolling back down again. So here you'll talk about the physical shop and the e-commerce. You'll name what you're considering. Is it an online store, aggregator, is it a portal? You just explain what it is and describe the model. So how would you describe a physical shop front? So just a sentence or two. And over here, how would you describe the business model that you're recommending that's e-commerce or e-business? What type of model is it? And some strengths and weaknesses. Once again, this is very similar to the previous table. Here you'll need to think about the differences in human resources. So if you have a physical shop front, you're going to need different kinds of people compared to an e-business. So for example, you might need salespeople, something like that. E-business, you're probably going to need some sort of a web designer or something like that. For each model, you'll then think about the technical needs. So what sort of software, hardware, skills and advice will you need? So for example, a shop front, you definitely need some sort of retail skills or experience. For e-business, you're probably going to need some sort of web design skills. So thinking of 3 there. Which revenue model would be used? So once again, scrolling up, in the previous question, it showed you a bunch of different revenue models. So you just have to identify which one might apply and pop it in the table. You'll then need to discuss the financial resources needed. So we know that John has $100,000, but we need to figure out what he would spend money on in either scenario. So which is going to be more expensive? And how do these two compare? So you've got to think about the sort of costs that might apply. So I'm just scrolling up here. For a physical shop front, you're probably going to need things like rent, wages, maybe some stock, a shop fit out, something like that. So you've got to think about and name each of the costs and a rough cost of each one, and you should be able to come up with a total for each option. For this e-commerce one, you're going to need to get a website design built. You're probably going to need an e-payment system or something, so a little bit of rough ballpark pricing, so you can end up with two figures that compare, and then you'll know whether John has enough money to start one model, both models, whatever. You'll be able to figure that out. As per the previous activity, discuss any security issues and also ethical issues. So with security issues, what might pop up? Fraud, theft are examples here, and just explore that in that table. After that, you're then going to evaluate those two business models. So here we have some criteria. Maximises the potential of the business idea, likely return on investment, and so forth. So you can use these or you can change them as you see fit, and you're going to use a scoring system. So you're going to score 1 to 5 for each thing and come up with a total down the bottom, and this is going to tell you which option might be better. Based on this table, you'll then make a recommendation. So which business model is going to be best for John to use? So here again, you've got a word limit. You don't need to make it to 300 words. If you've got, for example, 200 really good words and it's concise and it makes sense, that's perfectly fine. So don't get hung up on that. And that's the end of activity 3. Activity 4 is very simple and should be done very quickly. So this is where John's decided to promote his business. He's going to have a television ad, he's going to create a web page, and he's going to do some direct email marketing. So you need to do a bit of a Google search and figure out what codes of practice might apply to this marketing campaign of John's, and some sort of legislation or act that he would need to comply with in order to do this campaign. So dot points are fine here, and again less than the word count is also fine if you've answered the question. Question number 2 is to name and just briefly explain 3 methods of measuring the success of John's campaign. So if he runs these ads and does the new web page and does this direct email campaign, how can he tell it's successful? So think of some measures of success. So for example, revenue or sales might be one. After the campaign launches, if all of a sudden his sales start to go up, then he's going to know that it's successful. So work through that, and I think that is in fact the last activity for assessment 1.